my talk. Here we go. How he said he living life as a gringo. Where you question where you fit in every time you mingle. They say you do this with not enough that. My rapping is really bad. This life as a gringo.
Yes, hello and welcome to another episode of Life as a Gringo. I am Dramos, of course, and it is Thursday, so it means time for our Thursday Trends episode. And I apologize for how damn late I am on uploading this episode. I am, you can hear it in my voice. I barely have a voice. I was at a panel this morning. I was speaking on for companies and just being, representation for the Latin community and how to properly speak to us and all kinds of different things. I was on a panel today talking about the podcast and in the corporate and advertising world and all these different things. I was at an event for it last night. I am literally going to leave the studio here and get a couple hours of sleep. And then I'm on my way to Miami where I am going to be representing the Cultura podcast network, interviewing a bunch of different artists for iHeartRadio's Fiesta Latina. And the last, couple weeks before this, I've just been busy as hell with all the other projects. So I'm saying all of that to say it's been a hell of a few weeks with everything I've have going on right now. We've been doing Street Stoke, my other podcast, which launches this Monday, which is what is that, the 23rd, right? So a little plug there. I've been working hard on that. We've just been doing so much, and I say we and my team, which is basically comprised of my business partner Brenda. But there's been a lot going on. I am feeling it, but I'm also so grateful for all of these opportunities. And you didn't ask, but I'm basically just giving you like a post-game press conference right now speech. But yeah, I am grateful for everything. We just dropped the book. I've been sending those orders out this week, everybody who pre-ordered one. And I've just been busy as all hell. And today, this week was like, oh man, I am feeling it. And I just did not have time to get everything together, to drop everything, be as on point, I should say, with dropping the episode as I normally would like to be. So I apologize if this wasn't a part of your, Thursday commute to work or on your way home. If I fucked up your routine in some sort of way, I apologize, but your boy is spread thin right now. But all good stuff. Thank God. Things I've been dreaming about. It's just a lot, right? But with that said, I'm not making this all about me. It's Thursday, like I said, so we're doing a Thursday Trends. And I thought it'd be nice to have a change of pace where we just do positive stories, right? I know there's a lot of negativity. The news cycle has been very heavy. We touched on it in last week's episode. So I thought it'd be a nice change of pace. Let's just talk about the good news that's happening. So literally we're just having a Mi Gente segment for today's show, and I'm happy about that. So without further ado, or actually I'll tease as we always do, Bad Bunny drops a new album. We'll talk about that, of course, at Conejo Malo. We are talking about a community rallying behind some Puerto Rican landscapers after they were verbally attacked in the streets of Connecticut by some racist white people. So we'll talk a bit about that. We will also talk about a town in Kansas, actually. Topeka, Kansas, I believe is Topeka, Kansas, that is actually offering financial incentives for Latinos to move there. So they want Latinos to relocate to their town. So we'll talk all about that, and we'll do it in our Mi Gente segment. Mi Gente. All right, so for starters, let's just talk about this man, Bad Bunny. He is, man, I got to say the rollout is absolutely genius. He's got Al Pacino in the music video for the first single. The just the visuals are incredible, like Western theme, but also very classic. It's right on par, like style wise, with where I feel like I am in my life. Maybe that's why I'm connecting with it. He's got some bad bitch boots on and a nice suit, and I just dope visuals, dope rollout, and also he shaved his head. It's like this representation of Bad Bunny returning back to what people knew him for originally, right? Before he became the biggest artist in the world, before he was making songs you heard all over the radio, he was very prominent in the Latin trap scene, right? So this album is not gonna have the commercial hits of the previous couple albums, right? This is more lyrical. This is more sort of just like Latin trap at its finest. Again, it's him at his roots. He shaved his head to represent going back to that time. He went back to his old haircut. And I just love that. I love that idea of like him going back to his roots and the rollout and the whole release of this album really just kind of being like this return to form for him. And the album's called Nadie Sabe Lo Que Va a Pasar Mañana, right? Nobody's going to know what's going to happen tomorrow. And I think I'm not going to like critique it too much. I'm not going to get into it too much here. There is some controversy, people saying he's taking shots at other artists. I'm keeping it positive today. But I think it's interesting. He goes and addresses kind of everything, right? All of the controversies. He's talking about the girl whose phone he threw. He's talking about some of the lawsuits he's had, like from his ex-girlfriend who's suing him for using like a voice note that she had left him. And he's sort of addressing all of these things. And it's also like this insight into what happens when you become that famous and that successful, right? And he kind of talks about the idea of how you can almost do no right. Once you become so successful, people are going to begin to find every little thing they can critique about you, right? And he talks about, no longer sort of living for other people and trying to make everyone happy because it's impossible, that he's now just living for making himself happy, right? And I think, obviously we could sort of bat our eyes at a celebrity talking about how how hard life is. And I think that's there's some fairness to that to a degree, but also people are people at the end of the day, right? Regardless of fame or fortune, they still go through it like the rest of us. And to live under a microscope like that, especially when you're talking about somebody who represents an entire community of people, and we've placed the burden on the shoulders of a 20-something-year-old, to be a representative for all of us, I can imagine how difficult that is, right? And you're operating in all of these sort of new places, new phases of life, right? And you are having to grow up, and you're having money for the first time and success, and you're learning all these experiences, and you're doing it with cameras in your face constantly, with people wanting to know every little thing that you do. I can imagine how tough that is. And, he addresses a lot of that stuff on this album. And I just think it's dope. I mean, the guy has kept up a steady pace, almost like an album a year at this point, which is crazy. I think it just speaks to his genius as an artist. I think sonically this album sounds amazing. Again, I'm not going to turn this to a music blog, but it's just dope. But don't expect like the reggaeton. Don't expect the kind of catchier pop hits on here. This is like more of like a lyrical thing. It's got me sort of having to brush up on my Spanish a little bit, listen a little bit deeper, which I think is pretty dope, to be honest with you. So we're celebrating Bad Bunny putting out another project, also possibly his most honest one. And then he also announced his Most Wanted tour as well for 2024. He's going to be hitting the road. So it's just dope. I love the visuals. I'm like a nerd for branding and all that kind of stuff. So it's been really dope to see. Now, moving on to some other Puerto Ricans, not quite as known as Bad Bunny, but you have these Puerto Rican landscapers in Connecticut who are now having their community rally around them because of a really unfortunate incident that happened while they were just working, right? And of course, this could be, like a negative story, but I think there is a positive spin where people are supporting these guys. But you have Jose Martin, who's the owner of the company J. Martin Landscaping, and his brother. They were working on Frisbee Street in Middletown, Connecticut this last week when around 4 p.m., Robert Shaw, 62 years old, and Sharon Burgos Williams, 58, approached them and began sort of harassing them as they were literally just doing their job landscaping, right? Now, this all got caught on video. They were calling them an idiot. They were complaining that they were making noise all fucking day, quote unquote. Again, this is a weekend. This is what landscapers do. This is how people cut their lawn. It's a very normal thing if you live in the suburbs. But of course, there are the Karens of the world. And later on in the video, they then begin to get real racist about it, right? You can hear the dude, Robert Shaw, saying, quote, "This is why we need a border wall. Get these clowns out of here." Moments after that, the woman adds, quote, do you have a visa to be here? Are you here illegally? My blood is boiling a bit. I know I'm trying to keep it positive. But this is the effects of politics, right? A lot of people I've heard on the other side, when I would critique somebody like Donald Trump, or where I would talk about how beyond just policy, why he's so bad for America from a cultural standpoint because of the hate that he creates. This is an example of that. People are feeling so emboldened in their racism, and now they have these talking points, right? Build the wall. You probably are illegal, right? All of these sort of things that are constantly spewed by a particular side or have been stirred up and made normal by a particular side, right? The MAGA crowd has normalized the idea of being abusive and negative to brown people, to immigrants, right? And weaponizing their legal status. And ironically, in this situation, they're talking to guys who were born in Puerto Rico, a part of the United States, and are born American citizens, because again, Puerto Rico is a part of the United States, right? And the Connecticut couple that we're talking about here, these old white people, continue mocking the brothers, because the brothers who were the landscapers are refusing to engage, right? One is telling the other one to just stay quiet. It's not worth it. And this racist couple starts saying things like, quote, no speak English, then calling them clowns, even touching their truck, again, asking questions like, quote, do you have a visa to be here? You don't even have a visa, do you? Are you here legally? Are you legal? Now, the positive side of this, these racist white people got arrested. The police arrested them for hostile behavior towards the landscapers, right? It's a disorderly conduct linked to their, quote, hostile behavior. And the couple had to turn themselves in and were released on $10,000 bonds. And good for them. See, this type of shit makes me happy in that circumstance, because there are going to be reactions for all of our choices. You make a choice to be racist and harass people for no reason in the street. The reaction, the thing that will happen to you after that is getting arrested, because you can't just go and harass people and be menacing to them in the street. You can't have hostile behavior towards a stranger for no reason whatsoever, right? I wonder, like, I wish I could be a fly on the wall in people like this' home, right? Because I doubt that they're going to be like thinking to themselves, like, this was a wake-up call. Like, maybe we were in the wrong because we got arrested for this. To them, they're probably like, oh, the cops are out to get us. This woke community is trying to, cancel culture. They're all so scared to get canceled that they're arresting good citizens like us. And it's just sad, because listen, I grew up in the suburbs when I was in like high school and all that. And I had a lot of grumpy white people who were my neighbors, and they loved to complain about anything and everything. And some of them were racist, but for the most part, I think we lived in a time where they didn't necessarily feel completely comfortable being so blatantly racist like this, right? They used more dog whistling rather than calling us illegal, right? Although I do remember some lady didn't like that I was parking a van that I had when I was in my band on the public street, and accused my family of having, 10 people living in a house that literally was myself, my sister, my mom, and my dad. Which, again, even if we had 10 people living in the house, none of her business living down the street, and she also doesn't own the street. But anyway, that was like the racist undertones, right? It wasn't so blatant as this to tell you to go back to where you came from or accusing you of being here illegally. That has been created by MAGA culture, where they've emboldened people in their racism to think that it's okay to say things like that, or to feel comfortable saying things like that because they feel like they're going to get backed up in some way. And good for them. These white people had to turn themselves into prison and had to post $10,000 in bail. Hope it was worth it for them. I doubt it, but again, I like people like this. I don't see them changing because of this experience. They're gonna say that the system is now rigged against white people because of the woke culture that we live in. At least I got arrested. That helps me sleep a little bit easier at night when I know there are consequences and repercussions for our actions. Love to hear that. This last positive story that I wanted to get into for today's show, it is about a town, Topeka, Kansas. They're offering $15,000 in incentives for Latinos who want to relocate, right? So their mission is to enhance Latino presence in their community. State capital is currently boasting a predominantly Caucasian population and is looking to diversify its demographics, and Latinos could benefit from new economic incentives. They want to bring Latinos to their town. They recognize that the town is flavorless and needs a little sazon, and they're trying to bring some Latinos there. You'll have to see it. This is wild to me. I would never think, A, that this would even be a thing, or B, it would be in Topeka, Kansas, of all places, right? Which I've never been to Topeka, Kansas. I've been to Kansas before. I've been to Kansas City, Kansas. So a little bit different. Or I've been to Kansas City, Missouri. Very confusing. I know I've crossed the border into Kansas, I think, for some barbecue, I want to say. So I don't have a crazy story with Kansas, but I don't remember it being the most diverse place I've ever been. But this is a beautiful thing. So the Choose Topeka program is a dynamic partnership with employers that lures professionals who want to move or open businesses in the city and the wider Shawnee County community. Now, benefits of being chosen include up to $10,000 in funding for rental payments during the first year and up to $15,000 in purchasing a home. Employers can also opt for a 50% match in their funds. After the inaugural year, Go Topeka/JEDO will even step in with a 50% reimbursement of the total relocation incentives. And it's not just financial incentives, education is on the table as well. Washburn University is extending scholarships to students from families with a combined income below $75,000 annually. And they are saying, though, according to We Are Me Too, it's important to highlight that Topeka's incentives are not open to undocumented immigrants as it's not a sanctuary city. Now, some of the requirements here, the new employer must be a part of the program, have a full-time residency in Topeka, purchase or rent a home in Shawnee County for a minimum of 1 year, have eligibility for employment, and complete a Choose Topeka survey after a year. So this is the people, I guess, bringing businesses to the city of Topeka, Kansas. Now, military service members require proof of minimum salary of $50,000, purchase a home in Shawnee County, and must apply before the permanent relocation. Now, obviously, there's going to be stipulations, and this is just fascinating as fuck to me. This is beautiful, right? And there's going to be a lot of angry white people. There's going to be, I'm sure, the Caucasians of Topeka, Kansas. A lot of angry, white, middle-aged people are gonna have a problem with this, right? But like, I'm not gonna lie, this is a small thing, but it gives me hope, right? Because you're not even talking just about like relocating Latinos over there. It's like, hey, bring your business over here, right? And you're making a very, like, you're drawing a very distinct line in the sand, or I don't know if that's the right phrasing for this, but you're really saying, like, listen, we have a problem with diversity. We don't have any. And we don't feel comfortable in that. We don't feel like that lack of diversity is bringing out the best in our city. And we feel like if we diversify, we would be making Topeka a better place to live and a better hub for businesses and therefore, economics in our county, I think is Shawnee County. So I think, again, it's just a beautiful little thing that allows you to have some hope and some faith, right? In knowing that things can change if people actually give a shit just a little bit more, right? And maybe this program catches on. Maybe Topeka becomes a really great success story for small business building and diversity and all the new money it could possibly bring in. And maybe this program gets copied and implemented in a plethora of other places around the country. And we can begin to not be so regionalized, and we can begin to destigmatize some of the embedded racism that happens, right? Whereas now these white people who have been there forever, maybe they'll have a different experience with people of color, or broaden their horizons a little bit. You know what I'm saying? They will I don't want to speak for everybody, I'm generalizing, obviously, but I think if you grow up in a bubble, even if it's not out of malice, you're going to have certain stereotypes that you sort of believe just based upon hearsay, right? So I think programs like this one and bringing in, people who are hardworking and are there to boost the local economy as well. I think it could change some of like the racism we saw in that couple in Connecticut, right? Where they have a very negative connotation of immigrants and brown people in general in this country. And it's just a fascinating world that we live in, right? And I'm going to give you like a little inside baseball, right? Because I was talking about the panel that I was speaking on today. It's really interesting, right? Because we're kind of going behind the scenes of like the marketing and advertising engines, right? And there's a part of it where it can be, you can feel a little bit, I don't know, dirty when you're talking about marketing or advertising, right? Where you're like, hey, we want to reach a very specific group of people. And there can be, it feels a little weird saying that, right? You're kind of looking at people's numbers almost and demographics. But on the flip side of that, what I'm really inspired by, I was in a room full of primarily people of color, and the conversation was based around how do we reach our people and how do we educate, right? So it's like not only trying to sell, which, listen, it's a business at the end of the day, advertising, marketing, commercials. McDonald's wants to sell more burgers, Dairy Queen wants to sell more ice cream, whatever. I get all that. But on the other side of it, it's also making sure that we have a seat at the table as far as them recognizing that we exist, right? And again, on the surface, that statement alone could rub you the wrong way, where it's like, of course we exist. But we haven't in the broader sense of mainstream, right? Entertainment, media, commercials, everything, right? Education. We've sort of just been like told to get in where you fit in, or we've been sort of spoken to, but very generally, they didn't really care to speak to anything about us specifically. They're just kind of like, listen, you're going to get swept up in the popular opinion, the general consumerism, and we don't have to actually speak to you, right? And what happens with that sort of methodology is the same thing that happens in entertainment. I think that's the easiest sort of example I could bring up is like movies and television, where white stories are viewed as universal and stories about people of color are viewed as niche, right? And I think the same thing happens in marketing and advertising, right? Where it's like McDonald's doesn't feel like they have to speak to the Latin population. I'm using McDonald's as an example. That I didn't even mean anybody from McDonald's. So general example, I'm literally just using a brand that we all know and a hypothetical situation, right? But hypothetically, McDonald's saying we just have to market to the general people and Latinos will fall into that at some point, right? And in this sort of new diversity initiative that a lot of these companies are having, and a lot of the, sort of companies behind this sort of movement of trying to introduce that is really trying to speak to our needs, right? And I think the beauty of it, beyond selling more hamburgers or coffee or ice cream or whatever, it's the idea that more people of color are going to get hired into these positions and are going to be privy to being the priority as far as new hires go, because they need diversity. They need people who know how to speak to a particular community, right? So that begins to break up the old boys club that exists in business and corporate culture. And again, I think, you are, when you're quiet, when you're in a corner somewhere, nobody feels the need to speak to you, right? But now that we're demanding our voice be heard and our needs be met, these companies are recognizing that not only is it profitable for them to speak to us directly and to hear our needs, they also have no choice at this point, because we are becoming a powerful sector of this country, right? In population and spending power, in our voices that are being elevated right now through media and so on and so forth. What I'm trying to get at is the fact that these conversations are happening behind the scenes. It means that our community is finally being seen, like being really, really seen. That we're no longer just sort of like getting the scraps, but we're actually getting the attention that we deserve at the end of the day. And again, I'm talking about marketing or advertising, whatever it might be. But it's my opinion, my belief that all of this stuff sort of trickles down, right? And again, when it just comes to hiring, if these ad agencies, these marketing companies, or these sales teams are prioritizing hiring people of color because they recognize the value in their vantage point, again, that's a new crop of people that get hired that eventually rise to leadership positions, to executive positions. The next thing you know, the next generation has a completely different corporate culture than the one that mine grew up under. You know what I mean? And that's what I sort of see the beauty of all this. And that's what's inspiring to be a part of events like that, to be invited to speak on it, and to be a part of it. I think, I say that just to maybe give a little bit of hope to anybody who's like myself that wants us to have a seat at the table, far more often than we do right now. I think there are changes happening. There are a lot of people fighting for it. I mean, this podcast network is one of them, obviously, but, being privy to seeing things like this today, it's inspiring to kind of know that this is only just the beginning, and there are going to be so many more opportunities for people who look like us and from our backgrounds in various sectors of this country and the world as a whole. So I'm inspired by that, and I think that's such a beautiful thing to have been a part of that today. So really cool stuff, in general. So we kept it positive today, which I'm happy about.
Time for conclusion soon.
All right, so just to summarize all we've been talking about today, the legend that is Bad Bunny, young legend that is Bad Bunny, dropped a new album. I just love that it's like a back to basics for him. Haircut, the style of music, especially he's like this wildly successful artist now that could just keep trying to put out pop hits, but he's decided to go back to his roots and not put out a commercial album. I think it just speaks to the artistry itself. And I know there's a lot of people who maybe were a little mad at Bad Bunny for various reasons. They're kind of hopping back on the train because he's gone back to his roots, which is a great thing. Now, this landscaping company in Connecticut, J. Martin Landscaping. If you're in the Connecticut area, look up these guys. That's basically what local people have been doing to help support them on Facebook and things like that, is trying to hire them because of the harassment they face from this white couple, Robert Shaw and Sharon Burgos Williams, who were both arrested and had to be bailed out on $10,000 bonds, which, you love to see. They're arrested for hostile behavior, as they should. I don't know what kind of effect or change this may have on their own rhetoric, their own belief systems, but I think I love to see people being held accountable for their actions, and hopefully it creates, even if they still have the hate in their heart, hopefully they keep it, at their dinner table with their unseasoned chicken, rather than harassing people who are literally just out doing their job. So that's my hope. Now, this town in Topeka, Kansas, their chicken's about to be seasoned, honey. So they're about to be getting that sazon because they are paying Latinos to relocate over there. I'm gonna put the link in the show notes so you can check this out if you're interested in possibly being a part of this Choose Topeka program. I just think it's dope. Again, it just speaks to like the changing world. And I know it's not changing as quickly as we'd hope. I know there are certain things that feel like we're taking steps back, and I think we kind of are to a degree. But things like this are us moving in the right direction and give me hope for what could be the future for the next generation, if we continue on pushing initiatives like this one. I think it's incredibly inspiring in general. So good stuff right there. Now, with that said, listen, I apologize again, uploading this shit late as hell. I am sorry. I have failed you. I'm going to try to do better. I just been so damn busy with all kinds of things. Like I said before, Street Stoic, my other podcast, it is a daily, 15-minute podcast, daily inspiration. I combine ancient stoicism with hip-hop lyrics and quotes. And even if you're not like a hip-hop head, if you're not a philosophy head, I break it down. It's like normal, real-life instances. I give you a lot of behind the scenes of my own life, of how I've applied a lot of the concepts I talk about. And it's just a dope way to get your day started on a positive note, to be inspired. I love having podcasts like that one, where it's something I listen to every day. It's in my routine while I'm walking my dog, and it just makes me feel a little bit more positive and ready to go for whatever it is I'm doing that day. So that's what this is, the Street Stoic podcast. There's an entire first season, if you haven't checked it out, available anywhere you find podcasts. And the second season debuts on Monday, this Monday, October 23rd. And again, it's Monday through Friday, 5 days a week. It's there for you to start your workday. 15 minutes, that inspiration we all need to get our day started. So go check that out, Street Stoic Podcast, wherever you find podcasts. And thank you in advance for all the love and support. My new book is out right now, justbe.nyc. You want to pick that up. We are shipping everything out as we get them. So thank y'all so much for the support on that so far and your support in general. I am going to, try and get a couple hours of sleep, catch this flight, and go interview some amazing, amazing artists. So really excited about that. Shout out to State Farm and the Cultura podcast network and iHeartRadio for putting all this together. We're going to interview some legends. So I'm really excited about that one. I'll let y'all know how it goes when we talk on Tuesday. With that said, have an amazing weekend, and we'll talk soon. Until then, stay safe. Peace.